What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Top Dogs podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. UConn coming off of a really nice bounce back win at Georgetown. Previously 3-1 in the Big East. Georgetown, it was a win where it was nice to see UConn get the guy that was supposed to be their best player, looking like their best player once again. It was nice to see the level of defensive effort out of the Huskies, and another afternoon where some of the bench pieces that there have been questions and concerns about found a way to kind of get things going. Let's start with Alex Karaban, because I think that he's the headline coming out of this game. He was the best player on the floor. All due respect to Thomas Sorber, who was really good. Karaban was the best player on the floor. Finished with 19 points, finished with 6 rebounds, finished with 4 assists, 7 to 10 from the field, 4 6 from 3, couple of blocks, had a steal. Shook off a sloppy start. I was a little worried about it at the very beginning because, there was a missed layup in there midway through the first half. He had that one play where the ball just kind of went through his hands and he dropped a pass that he probably shouldn't have been dropping. So it looked like things were kind of in his head a little bit, maybe. Maybe I'm just reading too much into that, but he knocked down a jumper. He had a drive in a lane where he hit a little floater. Kind of got it going a little bit, got the confidence going a little bit, buried a couple threes in the second half, had one where he started waving on the crowd, and then they hit a couple from NBA range in the second half, and just looked like himself, man. Like, he got it going. He played like himself. He had a little bit of that swagger back, and I think more than anything else, he just needed an opportunity to show that he could be him once again. He got back to being the Alex Karaban that we knew he could be. Really good performance, really good to see, and something that I think was really needed for this UConn team. For about the first 35 minutes of that game, I would say probably the best defensive performance from UConn all season long. The ball pressure was there. They forced some turnovers. They made it hard for Georgetown to run offense. They did a really good job limiting Thomas Sorber as a scorer. They don't run a ton of stuff through him offensively, but they do run some. It wasn't like there was any kind of crazy game plan. Like, this wasn't a situation like we saw against DePaul where they switched everything, went through 4 a little unexpectedly. This wasn't something like against Villanova where they were switching every ball screen that Eric Dixon was involved in and doubling him on the on a catch and a post. They did double Sorber when he got the ball in the post. There wasn't a ton of opportunities where he did get the ball in the post. They did a pretty good job of kind of wedging him out on those opportunities. And like I said, Georgetown doesn't run a ton of offense through him on the block, but UConn did dare other guys to try and beat them, and it actually worked. They were able to win some of those matchups. It was a good old-fashioned Dan Hurley man-to-man defensive performance where they just said, I think our guys are going to be better than your guys. I think we'll be able to win this matchup, and they were able to do it. Nothing all that tricky. It was just kind of go out and be better than the guy that you're guarding, and UConn, for the most part, did that. I would say for the first time in a long time, Hassan Diarra kind of looked mortal in this game. He's been carrying a pretty heavy load offensively. He's been asked to do a lot offensively in terms of being a creator and being a facilitator. It was not the easiest go of things against Providence, even though he finished with 19 and 8. It was not the easiest go of things against Villanova, even though he had a pretty good game against Villanova. I thought that there was a little bit of sloppiness. He struggled with turnovers a bit. He struggled with ball pressure. The one that sticks out was there was the 3 at the end that was blocked when he just kind of dribbled in and was like, well, I guess I'm going to take this since I'm wide open. That led to a dunk. There was the turnover in the first half. I want to say it was in like the first 4 minutes where he made a lazy pass to the wing that was stolen by Micah Peavy, and that led to a dunk. I thought down the stretch, he probably is going to take more of the blame for the final 4 minutes than he probably should. I thought that was more of a function of UConn prioritizing running 30 seconds off of the shot clock versus trying to get a good shot in the last 8 minutes of that thing. We talked about this before, but DR is not the guy where with 8 seconds left, you want to isolate him and trust him to go create a shot, get a bucket, get fouled. That was what Tristan Newton was so good at, and that's not really Hassan Diarra's game. So it kind of put him in a bad spot there, but the win was more important. Running down the clock was more important. They were able to execute that and get that done. And, so it was A win is a win is a win, and if you can win with your starting point guard playing, a less impactful game than he usually has, there's never a bad thing with that, especially when it comes on the road. He did pick up a couple of fouls early, and that resulted in more minutes for Ahmad Noel early on in the first half. I thought that Noel did pretty well defensively. He had an impact on the offensive end of the floor. He got to the rim a couple times. He had that nice left-handed layup. There was one where he kind of drove in the lane, hit a little jumper. He's looking a little bit more comfortable. He's still not quite what UConn needs him to be in terms of a backup point guard. I think that once McNeely gets back, it'll be more. McNeely will be able to carry some of that secondary playmaker load, and Aiden Mahaney will be getting the majority of the backup point guard minutes. But knowing that Noel can step in and contribute is not a bad thing, and I do think it's good to kind of get him. Get him used to playing Big East basketball because he's going to have to probably end up being the point guard of the future. So he looked good in those minutes. He was able to make an impact there, and I thought that Aiden Mahaney actually was really, really good as well. I would make the argument that this was the best defensive performance that he's had since he's been in the program. I'm feeling better and better and better about where he is as a player right now. Jaden Epps, Malik Mack are both really good one-on-one weapons and one-on-one players. And there were a number of times where Mahaney got isolated on them and kind of held his own, more than held his own. Neither of those guys really played all that well. And that's really all you need from him, right? Is go out there, be in the right position, don't get blown by, be able to compete on the defensive end of the floor. And if they're going to make tough shots, well, they make tough shots. Be better than them offensively, and it'll end up being a net positive in the minutes that you're on the floor. And I thought for sure it was a net positive for UConn when Aiden Mahaney was on the floor. He had one really nice drive. He kind of went to his left and did a good job kind of leaning into the defender. And was able to create some space and make a lefty layup. I think it was actually against Micah Peavy, who's a little bit bigger and more physical. He knocked down a three, he had a drive in the lane, hit a little pull up. I thought that he had some really, really good minutes and really provided an impact on the defensive end of the floor. And I think the same can be said with Jaden Ross too. We've been critical of Ross here. I think that he probably needed a performance like this about as badly as anybody not named Alex Karaban, and maybe at the same level of Karaban. He was not great against Providence in the start. He had one really glaring mistake down the stretch against Villanova, which played a part in that loss. And there's just been, you can see the potential there in terms of the athleticism and the fact the shot doesn't look broken, but there's moments where it looks like it's not coming together at the rate that I think a lot of people were hoping. And I thought that today was a big step in the right direction. The first kind of action that he gets is getting out in transition, making that reverse layup around two people, an opportunity to just kind of go out there and have the first kind of impact on the game be something that really just requires you go do this athletic stuff around the basket, which is probably what he is the best at. And it seemed like that picked up his confidence a little bit. He was better defensively today. He made a three. He had a tough jumper in transition, or a tough middle jumper in the middle of the lane. But again, there's just moments where you can kind of see that it's not quite clicked for him. And we talked about what happened in the Villanova game. I don't want to have to go back and rehash that point, but there was a point in the second half of this game where, he was open for a three, right? And he hesitates. The defense kind of gets on him. He throws a pump fake and he actually creates another open look for himself. But again, he kind of gets it and he hesitates and he looks around and then eventually he decides to shoot it and he misses the shot. And to me, that just kind of showed that like he was out there thinking about whether or not that was the shot that he was going to take, thinking about what he was supposed to do instead of just hooping, instead of just reacting, instead of just playing basketball. And it's as counterintuitive as it sounds, thinking is one of the worst things that you can do when you are out there, because it makes you hesitate, right? And hesitation is kind of what will do you. You just got to go out there and make the play. And if you miss the shot, you miss the shot. If you don't get the steal, you don't get the steal. Like you got to go out there and at least try and give it your all. Because if you don't, then you're not going to make the play, and then you're going to set yourself up so the next play is something where you're not in a position to make it. So um, get out of his head a little bit. Get a little bit more comfortable with what he's supposed to be doing offensively, like what happening against Villanova, and if it all comes together, there really is a really good 3-and-D weapon there. But he's not quite there yet. Stewie was off tonight. I thought that he played probably his best all around game against Villanova, and then picked up some fouls, missed a couple of shots, and it was a couple of other guys that were able to make the impact off the bench today instead of him. And that's okay, man. It's the beauty of having the balance that you have on this roster. It's the beauty of having the different weapons that you have on this team. You don't need him to be great at this point every single game, just like you don't need Aiden Mahaney to be great every game, just like you don't need Jaden Ross to come in and do what he did today every single game. Um, you need a couple of those guys each game to have, maybe even just one of them to have a big game, and the rest of them to kind of go out there and just do their jobs. And all of them did their jobs today, and it was probably Aiden and I would say maybe Ahmad that had the biggest impact, Jaden as well. So um, we talked about killing off games earlier, right? We talked about that killer instinct, and I do think I go back and forth on. I've been trying to think about how this actually fits into that narrative, right? On the one hand, UConn came out in the second half and put this thing to bed and got us to 23 right away, where this game was over, where all they had to do was kind of run clock down the stretch. On the other hand, while they were trying to run clock down the stretch, they had a lot of bad possessions and a lot of ugly possessions and a lot of chances where uh, maybe they probably should have had a better shot or a better look, and Diarra is going to get blamed a lot for that. Um, I think that was much more a result of prioritizing, like I said, getting 30 seconds off the clock as opposed to actually getting a good shot up. But it was not great down the stretch, and I'm sure that that's something where over the next 7 days, that will be harped on during film room sessions, which would not necessarily be the worst thing in the world. It was a 20-point game at that point, and the clock running is really important, but it is what it is. So I would say, all in all, a split with Villanova and Georgetown on the road with the way that those two teams have been playing without McNeely, especially when you consider that the loss that they did take was one where they could have and maybe even should have won. And I would call that in total a good road trip. Um, Obviously you want to win every single game, but to knowing where those two teams are probably going to end up stacking in the Big East race this year, I do think that that's something where it's certainly a positive with some kind of a moral victory involved there. I also think it's worth noting McNeely is now out of the boot. He was not wearing the boot on the bench in this game. There's 7 days until you get the Creighton game at home, and after that, it's Butler at home, at Xavier, and DePaul at home before you get Marquette on February 1st. So I will be interested to see how they decide to use McNeely and bring him back. Um, I absolutely 100% believe they're going to want him at home against Creighton. And I think that he would be very useful in what is a game that would be, uh, you know, a real chance for UConn to take a loss there. I think that the way that Creighton matches up with them is actually pretty advantageous for Creighton. But uh, with the 3 games they have coming up after that and Marquette on February 1st, it might be something where they do end up going a little bit more cautious and kind of giving him a little bit more time. So, when it comes to an ankle sprain, a lot of that stuff ends up being pain management and what he can play through once you get to a certain point. So, um, we'll see, man. We'll see. It's probably too early to have any kind of guesses on when he's going to come back in that kind of situation right now. So it's all still to play there for UConn. This win means that the regular season title is still something that's within their grasp. Obviously, a Big East tournament title is something still within their grasp, and being able to make a run in March is something that's still on the table. So there's nothing better than an early Saturday game and a win. It makes the rest of the weekend just that much more enjoyable. So we've got a week off before UConn's next game chance to recharge, chance to load up, and chance to get ready to prepare for a Creighton team that has one of the best defensive fives in college basketball in Kalkbrenner. We'll talk more about Creighton during a podcast at some point during the week. But until then, hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Hope everybody enjoys the next week where there's no UConn basketball to worry about. And we will see you guys again at some point before Creighton comes up to maybe preview that game and maybe take a stock of where the season is halfway through the year. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link